Hey guys, what's better than throwing on your headset, chilling single at home, and diving into an epic single-player game? Absolutely nothing. So for you, my fellow gamers, I found a few awesome single-player games that'll help you escape reality for a bit. Enjoy the vid. An epic action RPG with stealth elements that dropped in March 2018. In this game, you play as Tilo, a tiny mouse minstrel on a mission to find his missing wife in a dark and dangerous castle. The gameplay is all about exploration, stealth, and knocking out various quests. Tilo can't fight, so you'll need to rely on smarts and sneaky tactics to avoid rat hunters and other enemies. What really sets this game apart is its insanely detailed world and hilarious dialogues. Every character, whether it's a shady pirate frog or a rat guard with a secret agenda, adds a unique flair to the game. There are tons of outfits Tilo can wear to unlock new areas and quests, which adds depth and strategy to the game, though it can be a real pain swapping costumes and running back and forth across the map. Despite some technical bugs and frustrating moments, this game is wicked fun and definitely worth your time. This tactical PvP-VE shooter with looter shooter vibes is a must-play for anyone who digs space battles and intense firefights. You run a crew of space pirates, and your mission is to raid space stations, loot resources, and go toe-to-toe with other players and AI enemies. The gameplay is all about crafting, customizing your weapons and ships, and engaging in tactical shootouts where accuracy and positioning are key. The game's standout feature is its visual style, giving off those classic space opera and retro-futuristic movie vibes. It adds a unique atmosphere that makes it stand out from other looter shooters. Overall, Marauders is your ticket to feeling like a legit space pirate and getting in on some high-stakes, adrenaline-pumping action in the depths of space. Now, this is the ultimate armored core, especially if you're into mechs. You suit up in a giant robot and head to the planet Rubicon 3, where you're going to blow enemies to bits. The big draw here is mech customization. Tune it up to match your playstyle, swap out weapons, armor, and all the cool gadgets. The gameplay doesn't cut you any slack either. It's all about thinking on your feet, which just cranks up the thrill and adrenaline. And of course, brace yourself for some brutal boss fights in true Miyazaki style. You'll be sweating bullets trying to find the perfect mech setup to take them down. What really makes Armored Core stand out isn't just the epic mech battles, but also the insane attention to detail in the animations and mechanics. Sure, the graphics might feel a bit retro compared to the latest games, but damn, there's nothing like watching your mech obliterate enemies in slow motion. Bottom line, this game is a blast. This is a survival and colony building sim. In this game, you're the boss, building and managing your own colony in a voxel-based world, with the main goal being to construct and expand. Recruit peasants, guards, farmers, and other settlers to handle various tasks and defend your base from monster attacks that come every night. The game's unique feature is the deep customization and planning it offers. You'll be setting up farms, mines, workshops, and all kinds of defensive structures to ensure your colony's survival and growth. But don't let the management side fool you. There's constant tension and danger. Every night, zombies will attack your colony, so you'll need to carefully plan your defenses to keep your precious settlers safe. Oh, and the game supports co-op mode, so you can share this nerve-wracking experience with friends. And here we have an epic first-person tactical shooter. In this game, you take on the role of a CIA special ops operative tasked with carrying out tough and sometimes downright terrifying missions all around the world. Forget about mindlessly running and gunning like in Call of Duty. Every action here needs to be calculated, and every mistake could be your last. Ground Branch's uniqueness lies in its attention to detail, from realistic ballistics to full customization freedom for your operator. You can tweak your gear, weapons, armor, and even your outfit to match any mission. So, this game is definitely for those who want to feel like a real Spec Ops soldier, not just sprinting and spraying at enemies. This one's a crazy first-person shooter developed by Squanch Games. This intergalactic madness dropped in December 2022. You play as a teenager who becomes an intergalactic bounty hunter, fighting against an alien cartel using living, talking weapons. And yeah, aside from the cartoonish graphics, the unique thing about this game is the weapons themselves. They each have their own personality, quirks, and love to crack jokes at your expense. You'll be traveling to bizarre planets, completing quests, battling enemies, and enjoying a ton of goofy and funny moments. The pistol sounds like Morty, the shotgun is like a roided-up jock, the homing larvae gun is a chill, peace-loving hippie, and the knife is a psycho slasher. And then there's the local BFG. and they all keep commenting on everything. All this craziness adds up to a pretty hilarious experience. In a medieval, you're basically just mowing down hordes of demons. The game is a nod to classic 90s FPS titles like Heretic or Quake. Here you're the usual brave hero fighting against the forces of evil, wielding magical artifacts and a variety of weapons. The game is split into 7 big episodes packed with monsters. But there's one cool thing that makes it truly unique. There's a soul mode that kicks in when you collect enough souls from slain enemies. In this mode, all your weapons become insanely powerful, turning into full-on instruments of mass destruction. The game is known for its fast-paced and dynamic gameplay, no fall damage, the ability to breathe underwater, and the absence of those annoying random platforming deaths typical of the genre. So, it's just a non-stop level of carnage. And this is Flintlock, which pretty much flew under the radar, even though it was made by the same biting crew at A44 who gave us Ashen, the first co-op Dark Souls. This one's kind of a Souls-like too, but not as hardcore as the original. It's got just the right balance. You play as Munor Vong, and the plot's all about seeking revenge on the gods. Basically, it's Glide of War, like God of Gore, but with a twist. Gameplay-wise, it's a lighter version of Dark Souls, with progression elements similar to the recent Assassin's Creed games. Parrying is essential here, and instead of dodging, you've got dashes, just like in Bloodborne. You can also interrupt enemy attacks with gunshots, which is a core part of the combat system. The world's open, though the game leans more on the linear side, but if you're into exploring, there's a handful of NPCs to keep you busy. Resource gathering for weapon upgrades is also in the mix, along with a few side quests. Overall, it's an underrated Souls-like that doesn't leave you pulling your hair out. You know, it's easy to remember that Arcane Studios gave us the amazing Dishonored, but are you hip to the fact that the same devs also made Deathloop, a game that a lot of folks seem to have slept on? For those who've played Dishonored, Deathloop might feel like a bit of a reskin, which means that same atmospheric vibe and gameplay are still there. But there are some key differences. The main gimmick here is the time loop that drives the entire game. You play as Colt Vaughn, a dude with amnesia who wakes up every morning on the shores of a mysterious island called Black Reef, trying to break the cycle. To do this, you've got to kill 8 cult leaders in a single day, which means you'll need to plan your moves carefully each time. It's a mindbender for sure, but with a lot of quirks. Speaking of Arcane Studios, it's worth mentioning that these guys usually work with Bethesda, and since we're talking about classics, I've got to bring up another timeless gem, this time from Machine Games, Wolfenstein: The New Order. This game is insanely addictive, especially if you just want to, pardon my French, kill some Nazis. By the way, the studio recently dropped Wolfenstein: The Old Blood, which is a sort of follow-up to The New Order, so there you go. 2 games to sink your teeth into. Trust me, boredom won't be an issue. Now, let's talk Control. In this one, you're playing as a chick with a small but powerful set of superpowers, like telekinesis. At first, the game kind of gave off horror vibes, at least to me, because the enemies that pop up are seriously creepy. But by mid-game, it transitions into a full-on third-person action fest. And if you're a fan of Alan Wake, you're going to lose it because it's set in the same universe, and there's a ton of familiar stuff, especially in the DLC. I played this game mostly at launch, and it was an absolute blast. Beyond the gameplay, story, and world, the game also delivers a huge dose of aesthetic pleasure. It's a big artistic and cultural statement in terms of style, architecture, and atmosphere. Let's move on to Assassin's Creed, specifically what I consider one of the best in the series, Odyssey. Considering what Ubisoft has done with the latest Assassin's Creed games, which most sane gamers have already written off, I'd recommend diving into Odyssey instead. The views, the sunshine, the sea, and just the whole vibe of that era really help you escape. Not only is the game visually stunning, but it's also really well made. Tons of interesting side quests, a pretty decent story by Ubisoft standards, and 2 solid characters to play as, both of whom are genuinely enjoyable. The guy's cool, the girl's got charisma, especially if you mod it up. All in all, Odyssey is actually a solid Assassin's Creed entry. When I'm in the mood for some serious gaming, I fire up Red Dead Redemption 2. Honestly, I've never played a more immersive game than RDR2. The world itself feels alive, even without you. And strangely enough, that's the whole point. You can literally do nothing. Just play poker, roll dice, go hunting, or simply go fishing. You can play it however you want, and you'll still have a blast. But be warned, by the end of the game, you might find that you don't want to play anything else afterward. Quiet and calm, Yet deeply atmospheric and moving, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is a game that's sure to leave a mark on your soul. It's a game that makes you understand just how tough it can be to battle your inner demons. At the start, you meet Senua, a girl who's trying to find her lover, Isodeta, but she's literally diving into her own inner world, facing her fears, anxieties, and everything else, and she's got to deal with it all. This is all wrapped up in a stellar soundtrack and stunning graphics. I mentioned Hellblade, which might give you a bit of a scare, but if you're looking for a true fright, grab Dead Space. This game was a real game changer when it first came out in the 2000s, and even years later, it remains a masterpiece. You play as Isaac Clarke, who finds himself on a space station where something's gone horribly wrong. You'll have to face off against necromorphs that can jump out at you from any corner, scaring the hell out of you. If you're looking to dive into a roguelike that's perfect for killing some time, Hades is your go-to. The game is insanely addictive, but also brutally challenging, where every mistake could be your last. You play as Zagreus, the son of Hades, trying to escape the underworld. This game will pull you in, no cap. Speaking of badass ladies with powers, in Severed Steel, you're also playing as a chick who's packing heat. The devs went all out with this one, mixing up genres like crazy. First off, visually, it's got that super hot vibe with sharp, clean lines. Then, like Nero from Devil May Cry, our girl is missing an arm. Oh, and it's a shooter. So yeah, no reloading for her, which means you're gonna see some wild takedowns, kind of like in Superhot. Plus, they threw in some insane parkour with wall runs, crazy jumps, and slow-mo kills. You get the picture. Pure chaos on your screen. You feel me? But hey, if that last game made your brain melt, maybe chill out with something more laid back. How about diving back into The Walking Dead for a massive episodic adventure that'll suck you right in? You really get into the role of the main character, and it's wild experiencing all the stuff he goes through. You could die at any moment, and the choice system, where characters can die based on your decisions, will mess you up. If you're looking to escape the real world, this game's got your back. This one's a straight-up addiction. I don't need to say much. This is Hades 2. The story picks up right after the first game, but it's kind of unclear what's going on at first. This time around, the main character is Melina, Zagreus' sister and another child of Hades. She's got an even bigger mission, taking down Kronos, the Titan of Time, who also happens to be her granddad and Hades' dad. Gameplay-wise, it's a lot like the first game, but with some new mechanics that really crank things up. But be warned, the full playthrough might take a while. The game felt way tougher than its predecessor, maybe because of all the new tools you can use. Oh, and here's a cool bit. Besides the underworld, you can also explore Olympus, a completely different path with its own enemies, bosses, and allies. It's still in progress though, with only 2 zones compared to 4 full zones in the underworld. So yeah, you'll be handling business in 2 different realms. There are tons of other features too, but I'd suggest checking them out yourself. This game's straight fire, the best vampire game out there right now, made by the folks behind Battlerite, if that rings any bells. Sure, you can play it on shared servers with others, even with PvP, but honestly, it's great solo too. I played solo and had a blast. It's a survival game with fast-paced combat and a world that feels alive. Even the bosses can roam the map and randomly fight each other. There's base building, leveling up, tons of crafting, map exploration, and multiple zones. Plus, the game recently got a major update. If you played it at launch, like I did, it might just blow your mind now. Let's talk about eye candy games. This list already has a lot of them, but this one's a real standout. No rest for the wicked. You know, the action RPG genre has been in a bit of a rut lately. Most studios can't seem to break away from the classic Dark Souls formula with third-person cameras, souls dropping from player corpses, and bonfires for resting. The models may change, but the core stays the same. But here, things are a bit different. It's easier to explain the gameplay by comparing it to something familiar. If I had to describe it in one punchy line, it'd be Diablo on steroids. This game is a pure action RPG, where you slaughter enemies, loot random gear and weapons, and hope to score a sword with slightly better damage than what you've got. But instead of mowing down dozens or hundreds of weak NPCs, every enemy here is a tough opponent that can flatten even the most seasoned adventurer. This one's the perfect mix of RPG and survival. Since hitting early access, the devs have really packed it with content. You can play not just in co-op, but on a whole separate server for up to 16 players. Of course, solo is an option too. You create your character, explore the world, and try to figure out this deadly mist. There's that adventure vibe, as every time you step out, you never know if you'll make it back. Like any survival game, there's crafting and base building. Honestly, I'd recommend not building a base from scratch, but instead finding a house, Fixing it up a bit and using that, it's way easier and saves you from grinding too much. Plus, there's leveling up and even class distinctions, which is pretty rad for a survival game. If you're craving a Dark Souls fix but have already conquered all its clones, check out Lies of P. It's probably the best Souls-like game not made by From Software. Think of it as a mix of Bloodborne and Sekiro, taking the atmosphere and arsenal diversity from the former and the skill-demanding combat system from the latter. It's a delightful blend that creates something truly unique. Technically, it runs like a dream. Superb optimization, smooth controls, a cohesive art style, all topped with a solid soundtrack. From the get-go, you're immersed in this Pinocchio-inspired world, though it's got a dark twist. Wildermyth is all about crafting endless adventures. Sure, there are roguelikes and text-based RPGs, but the devs combine them into something fresh. It's basically a narrative RPG roguelike where you create characters with backstories and send them on epic quests. There are several large campaigns, each packed with mini-adventures. The gameplay is a mix of tactical strategy and storybook-like comics. The game revolves around two pillars: a global map with travel, gear, sieges and resources, and tactical battles on grid-based tiles using 3 character classes and their gear. The stories are so wild, you won't believe it. For example, you might fall in love during an adventure, have a kid with that character, and then bring the kid along as a fighter. This is Japan's take on Shadow Tactics, a real-time tactical stealth game. You manage a squad of 5 characters, each with unique abilities, and carry out missions involving espionage, sabotage, and assassination in Edo period Japan. You've got 13 pretty tough missions that can be tackled in various ways. The game stands out for its focus on cooperative play and tactical planning. For example, the Shadow mode lets you synchronize actions across all characters, allowing you to take out large groups of enemies quickly and efficiently. If you played the first game, this one will feel familiar, but with even more to offer. For those who haven't, here's the scoop. You play as Beatrix LeBeau, who heads to Rainbow Island. The main goal is to collect, breed, and care for adorable slimes to get plorts, which are the local currency. You can sell these plorts to upgrade your farm and unlock new areas. The game has a super cozy vibe with a charming island setting. You gather slimes, upgrade your base, and solve puzzles in a relaxed, cat on your lap kind of way. This atmospheric first-person horror was released in 2022. You play as a group of students who thought checking out an ancient curse sounded like a great idea. Naturally, things go south fast. The crew soon realizes they're in for a true survival horror experience with spirits that aren't exactly friendly. You'll be running through dark university corridors, solving puzzles, and collecting key items to stop an evil spirit that's out to get you. The gameplay has plenty of tense moments, especially when you're hiding in lockers or bathrooms to avoid the spirit. It's intense, with a narrative rooted in a Taiwanese urban legend, and a sound design that's downright terrifying, making it a truly memorable horror experience. Adventure Time. Kingdoms and Castles is an insanely addictive city-building sim with strategy elements that dropped in 2017 and quickly racked up positive reviews for its simple yet engaging gameplay. You start with a tiny castle and need to set it up near resources. Trees for lumber, fertile land for farms, and stone and iron mines for gathering. You gradually build homes, farms, warehouses, markets, and other essential buildings to expand your kingdom. The game's charm lies in its atmosphere and visual style. Cute polygonal models and bright colors create a pleasant vibe. You'll need to keep your peasants happy by providing them with housing, food, and entertainment, so they keep your city growing. But don't get too comfy. Vikings and dragons will periodically raid your kingdom, and you'll need to fend them off by building defensive walls and towers. Plus, there's winter and various disasters like fires and plagues to ramp up the challenge. Get ready for an action-adventure where you play as Adalia Delador, a charismatic lady taking on villains in Zorro style. It's not just about swinging your sword. You'll constantly be looking for ways to use the environment, everything from barrels to chandeliers, to stun enemies and create comical yet effective battle scenes. The game shines with its humor and fast-paced action, reminiscent of the best cape and hat hero films, packed with jokes and unexpected twists. The graphics are vibrant and juicy, and each arena is filled with interactive objects you can use in combat. So it's not just fights, it's a full-on show where every skirmish is a mini performance with acrobatic tricks and sarcastic banter. Dive into this action RPG with survival and roguelike elements and get ready to protect your settlement from giants and other beasts in a world steeped in Norse mythology. Your main gig is gathering resources, building fortifications, and teaming up with other players to fend off increasingly tough enemy attacks. The gameplay is super dynamic, featuring fast-paced combat and the constant need for planning to survive harsh conditions. What sets the game apart is its cooperative mode, letting you team up with other players for more effective defense and world exploration. Visually, the game pops with bright colors, stunning landscapes, and detailed character models. Tribes of Midgard is a solid pick for fans of fast-action RPGs with survival and cooperative elements. Drop a comment if I missed anything, and have a great evening, folks.